Lure remembered the exact moment the world became weightless. Not dawn or dusk, not a clock reading, but the instant their stomachs rose into their throats and the floor slipped out from under everything. Birds shot skyward like startled arrows. Coffee floated from cups in perfect spheres. Whole cities seemed to inhale, then drift. For a heartbeat, silence ruled. Then came the sounds of things unmoored. Sirens howling while the vehicles meant to chase them hung helpless in midair. Dogs barking as they paddled against nothing. The long groan of buildings shifting on foundations that no longer meant anything. On an open plaza, Ravi clutched a railing and found there was no weight in his hands, no pressure under his boots. He drifted clear of the ground before reflex made him clamp down. Around him, strangers grabbed at benches, poles, one another. Someone screamed as a stroller spun lazily upward. A baby strapped inside like an astronaut launched without a ship. Power grids faltered within minutes. Transmission towers tore loose, their wires flailing like seaweed. Reservoirs frothed and rose. Entire rivers peeled from their beds, riding into the sky. The planet had been unhinged from the simple rule that down existed. News anchors tried to speak through their own floating papers. Broadcasts flickered with footage of people clinging to bridges while buses and trees swam by overhead. A pale shimmer hovered above the atmosphere, thin as gossamer and far too uniform to be natural. Someone called a shell. Someone else a net. By the end of the first hour, governments were ordering citizens indoors and telling them to secure themselves with belts, cables, anything. They spoke through clenched jaws to keep microphones from drifting. The message was calm on the surface, but underneath lay a thrum of fear. Nobody knew why gravity had stopped. In the industrial belt of Punjab, Amara wedged herself inside a steel frame at the fabrication yard where she worked. Sparks from a welding torch floated like orange pollen around her. She reached for her phone and it slipped away, spinning slowly. She trapped it against her palm and dialed home. No answer. Lines were choked everywhere. She swallowed the rising panic and began tying lengths of welding cable to a beam, building herself a tether. Across the ocean, Leo, a former pilot turned cargo dispatcher, hovered in his office doorway as monitors floated like obedient ghosts. He studied the readouts on a tablet. Altitude, or what had been altitude, now meant nothing. Cargo jets hung in the sky, neither falling nor climbing, their engines useless without the pull of Earth. He muttered the same sentence over and over. This is not possible. By the second day, impossibility had become routine. Humans learned quickly when survival demanded it. People knotted ropes between lampposts and rooftops, creating webs they could pull themselves along. Engineers stripped electric winches to build crude reels that could anchor them to walls. Children practiced catching bubbles of milk before they could splatter across ceilings. Satellites caught clear images of the invaders. Black craft shaped like cut gemstones hovered above every continent, casting faint crimson halos. They released no sound, no heat signature beyond a steady pulse. Broadcasts from them arrived simultaneously in every language, voiced by an emotionless chorus. You've been relieved of gravitational burden. Compliance will ensure continuity of life. The phrase became a dark joke among the survivors. Continuity of life, muttered while strapping a kitchen chair to a stair rail, or fastening a cable around a sleeping child waist. No explanation of motive, no offer of return. Only that flat promise that life would continue, if people accepted weightlessness. Ravi met Amara 3 nights after the collapse, in a warehouse turned shelter near the river. Someone had rigged heavy chains on the rafters, and families clung like fruit in a strange metallic orchard. They compared notes. How certain tools felt faint resistance if pointed toward the hovering ships. How droplets of water drifted differently near the crimson beams. Amara showed him a fragment she had fished from a rooftop. A sliver of alien alloy, warm despite the cool air. They weren't the only ones collecting scraps. Across drifting towns and tethered farms, scavengers sought fallen pieces of the enemy's devices. A pattern emerged. Each shard hummed faintly, vibrating toward the sky. Scientists, or anyone who could fake being one, hoarded samples, sketching equations in midair with marker pens taped to their wrists. A rumor spread. Gravity had not disappeared at all. It had been stolen, siphoned upward by an unseen network. The shimmering shell overhead might be the reservoir where Wait Now lived. People whispered about how to break it, or how to ride its current back to the ground. On the 10th day, an electromagnetic pulse rippled across Asia. Every shard collected by humans flickered, its inner glow reversing for an instant. Where the pulse struck, objects drifted a fraction slower, like stones thinking about falling. It lasted seconds, but the implication was electric. Someone, somewhere, had dented the thieves' machine. The whisper of resistance grew louder. Radios patched together from scavenged gear past coded messages. A voice calling itself Anchor claimed to know how the aliens' projectors worked. The idea was lunacy and hope entwined. If Wait could be taken, it could also be reclaimed. Ravi listened as Amara read Anchor's transmission aloud in the shelter, her voice steady despite the way her braid floated around her head. She glanced at the alloy shard, then at the lines of children sleeping in their hammocks of canvas and cable. If we want to stay human, she said, we can't just hold on. We have to pull back. Weeks passed since the first pulse hinted at weakness in the invaders' hold. Humanity had learned to exist in a slow ballet, but living was not winning. Across floating neighborhoods and tethered farms, people's muscles ached from clinging, their minds dull from constant vigilance. Beneath exhaustion smoldered a question. If gravity could be stolen, could it also be taken back? Amara led a group through the gutted remains of an old radio observatory, now lashed together with cables and steel bars. Inside, coils scavenged from turbines spun slowly, each wrapped around fragments of alien alloy. The team's goal was simple to state and maddening to execute. Find a frequency that bent Wait. Ravi anchored himself near the workbench, tablet strapped to his forearm. He cataloged every spike from the detectors, marking where a shard's faint glow shifted from blue to amber. Equations covered the walls, pinned with magnets so they wouldn't drift away. They had no supercomputers, only patched laptops and stubborn logic. Elsewhere, Leo coordinated supply caravans, rafts of lash vehicles pushed along by jury-rigged thrusters. The convoys delivered batteries, copper wiring, even seeds for the hanging gardens feeding the settlements. Every delivery had to be timed with orbital passes of alien drones. A single misstep, and a scarlet beam would sweep the cargo into useless ash. Humanity's strength was not just in bravery, but in quiet choreography. The first breakthrough came when a young coder named Sita linked 3 shards into a triangle, then pulsed current through them. The room trembled as a localized pocket of pull formed, tugging tools toward the center. It lasted half a breath, but for that moment, the world remembered down. Cheers filled the lab, followed by frantic restraint. Celebration too loud might draw attention. Anchor's transmissions grew bolder. The mysterious voice described something called an inversion lattice hidden within the alien craft. According to the notes, their gravity harvesters operated like siphons, channeling mass energy through harmonics. Disturb the lattice and the siphon faltered. It wasn't destruction they sought, but leverage. Amara argued for immediate field tests. Leo countered with caution. Losing a prototype was one thing, losing people another. They compromised. Volunteers only, full consent. Dozens stepped forward, hands steady despite the slow drift of dust around them. Humanity's defiance was not loud. It was deliberate. The first trial took place above an abandoned port where cargo, containers floated like patient whales. Ravi and 2 others strapped on makeshift harnesses powered by shard batteries. At Amara's signal, they activated the units. A tug surged through Ravi's boots, faint but unmistakable. For the first time since the collapse, his body recognized Wait. He shouted, laughter catching in his throat as he planted his soles on the side of a container and felt resistance. They refined the devices, adjusting field strength, learning to bleed energy before it overheated. Each iteration stole a little more of the alien's advantage. Soon climbers could navigate vertical wreckage without ropes, and scouts could launch themselves toward alien drones with precision thrusters attached to their belts. These victories were quiet, but word traveled fast to the underground network. Families rigged miniature stabilizers to keep children from drifting in their sleep. Farmers suspended trays of seedlings inside gentle pull zones, watching roots grow straight instead of curling in confusion. Every adaptation whispered the same message. We are not done. Aliens began to react. Patrol patterns changed. Crimson beams swept with new aggression. 2 settlements vanished after daring to anchor large habitats. Survivors spoke of black spheres detonating midair, erasing anything nearby. Fear crept in, sharp as frost, yet the work continued. To stop meant surrender. Ravi examined telemetry from one destroyed site and noticed a flaw. The enemy's strikes aligned with bursts of energy from their own lattice. He realized the harvesters needed recalibration each time humans bent a portion field. Exploiting that rhythm might open a corridor to the command ship. Anchor urged patience, describing a strategy in careful code. Infiltrate gravity node, seed it with an echo device, and feed the aliens false stability readings. Only when enough nodes were compromised could a final surge wrest control. The plan demanded coordination across continents, beyond language and politics. Meetings took place in dim warehouses or inside shells of derelict planes. Charts floated between participants, held by magnets or simple willpower. Every face, though blurred by drifting hair or cloth masks, shared a single resolve. They would no longer cling to debris and hope. They would stand, even if standing meant daring the void. Amara spearheaded training. Volunteers learned to navigate using only small pressure bursts from their harnesses, conserving charge for emergencies. They practiced tether rescues, precision landings on swaying platforms, and silent communication through light signals. Instructors drilled the mantra: control the field, control the fight. Sita advanced the theoretical work, mapping resonance points along orbital tracks. Her calculations predicted where alien relays focused their extraction beams. Teams launched at dawn, though dawn was now only a concept, to plant beacons at those points. Each mission risked exposure, yet every success bent the odds toward freedom. The network also built contingency shelters deep inside steel-lined caverns anchored by massive ballast. If the aliens retaliated with full force, humanity would have seeds, circuits, and stories preserved. They prepared not only to win, but to outlast. As weeks turned into months, morale hardened from fragile hope into quiet certainty. People began to speak of taking gravity, rather than merely recovering it. Ownership implied agency, and agency bred strategy. Even children born during the weightless era learned to trust their elders' promise. One day, you will feel the earth pull you close again. The decisive opportunity arrived with a message from Anchor decoded by Sita late one night. It contained coordinates of a newly deployed projector hovering above the equator, smaller than the others, lightly guarded. Its purpose seemed experimental, perhaps a relay to monitor human resistance. To Ravi and Amara, it looked like bait, but also a chance. Capture intact, and they could map the entire Sci-Fi network. Debate was brief. Delay invited heavier security. They selected a strike crew, engineers for disassembly, pilots for maneuvering, guards for cover. Harnesses were upgraded with redundant cells. Cable spools were checked thrice. Each participant signed a slate affirming the risk. Not one withdrew. On launch day, the crew gathered atop an anchor platform built from ship hulls. Clouds drifted far below, turned inside out by stolen weight. Above, the target glimmered against a backdrop of alien vessels. Amara's voice cut through the calm hiss. We are done borrowing moments. Today we steal their future. They kicked off, thrusters flaring, rising toward a machine that had unbalanced the planet.